And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. March 16th, I'm Dino Vidala, coming to you live from my apartment. So if you're on Facebook.com, you can see my apartment if you'd like to see a room, Facebook.com/DinoRadio, or on Twitter, Dino Vidala. And I'm taking social distancing to its furthest. I've been doing emotional distancing for years. I'm now doing the actual physical social distancing. And clearly we know what we're going to talk about. It's the topic that's on everyone's. We have some great experts on later in the show to discuss it. The Trump right below said this is going to continue on some level to July or August. We're not exactly sure what that means with him because who he knows. I mean, look, I know some people, because I've talked to both sides. I've talked to those who are easygoing and calm about this whole thing. Like, it doesn't faze them whatsoever. They understand there's a risk, but they're not that worried. Then I've talked to the other side. People freaking out. I live with one. And most people are in that spectrum between the life is just like normal, just a little bit different, to I'm really freaking out. There's nothing I can say to you if you try, to someone who is, and others who have. Except for the fact that I'm hoping that facts make it less uncertain. Because it's often the uncertainty that creates the greatest anxiety. In fact, we have a great doctor on at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time tonight who is a former infectious specialist at the CDC. We come on and talk about what you can do, how we can change this. But I've got to tell you this one thing. It may or may not turn out to be as bad as Italy or another country, but here's the thing. We are now all interrelated. It doesn't matter if you are anti-Trump or pro-Trump or apolitical. We are all interrelated in this time. And that's not like a nice little cute talking point. That's the truth. If you see the models on how social distancing and responsible actions by all of us play in this virus spreading. There's a great article in the Washington Post with interactive charts. And it shows a scenario of if one don't and are doing their normal life, how much spreads. But if 90% of people follow social distancing, don't go out except for essential needed things when you have to go out for things. We've all heard the term flattening the curve, just keeping the number of outbreaks down, infections down. It's remarkable to see the impact it can have. So we're all interrelated. And if there's times you're wondering, should I go to a place or not go to a place, and if it's not essential, think about your responsibility to your fellow American, your fellow person living on this swath of land that we call the United States of America. That you going out could result in you getting the virus and then infecting others. You may never even have symptoms, but still you might do that. So keep in mind, we are all interconnected now. It doesn't mean I'm going to like you because you're a Trump supporter. If I didn't like you before, I'm still not going to like you now. But we're all interrelated in this time. We are all interconnected. We are our brothers and sisters keepers in this time. I'm not going to say some kumbaya fest. It's going to be great and we're all going to love each other. Unlikely. If you follow politics, you're hyper-partisan like all of us. We're a polarized nation. It is not a talking point. It's not a feel-good speech to make you go like, oh, we are. Absolutely. And when the doctor comes on later, she's going to make that very point. Now, today, officials recommended, there was a press conference a short time ago, Americans should not gather in groups of 10 or more, which for me is easy because I don't like having a lot of people around me. But for everyone else who loves going to bars and big gatherings, can't do it. You're supposed to keep it to 10 and under. And again, that's about social responsibility. That's about responsibility to your fellow human being. New York City, where I live, everything is closed now. We've got, the only thing left open are food stores and pharmacies right now. And we'll see how it goes on. Now, here's Donald Trump today talking about the restriction on social gatherings and travel. This was just about an hour ago. Let's hear clip number 1, please. So there's Donald Trump. He was reading off a piece of paper someone else had written for him. That's fine. Experts wrote that for him. So he was sharing the facts. That's a good thing. To show you this is not a kumbaya fest, let me be blunt about this. Donald Trump saying today he wants to stay ahead of the curve is unreal. It's an insult to us. He had a chance 2 months ago to stay ahead of the curve. He did not. On January 20th, the first case of coronavirus on U.S. soil was detected. Donald Trump was asked about it on January 22nd, almost a month ago, asked, were you briefed and what is going on? And here's Donald Trump asked that very question on CNBC, and this is the very first time he's asked about the contamination of U.S. soil, the first infection. And to be clear, we already knew this was ravaging parts of China. It was here on U.S. soil. And here is Donald Trump's answer, clip number 2. How did we go in less than 2 months from totally under control to don't gather with 10 people or more? How did I have it totally under control to America is essentially closing? Today, the stock market dropped 3,000 points, the biggest drop in the history of the stock market. And I don't live and die by those numbers like Trump does. It gives you a sense of economic anxiety that investors have. True anxiety the rest of us have. If you're not in the stock market, control to today. Here is the simple answer. Donald Trump. It was Donald Trump's incompetence. It was Donald Trump's dismissing of the risk posed by this virus that got us to where we are today. You know, some say Donald Trump's, his reaction to this virus is Donald Trump's Hurricane Katrina. You may have heard others say it's his Katrina. I don't think so. To me, it's more Donald Trump's Chernobyl. It has to do with 1986, a nuclear reactor accident in the Soviet Union, where they lied to the people and misled the people about the risk associated and presented by that. That's what this is. This is not Katrina. This is Chernobyl. And I'll go through that more in some detail in a few minutes. But look, over the 2 months from January 22nd, when he said, I have it totally under control to today, what have we been subjected to? What have we heard from this man? A nonstop stream of lies. Attempts to undermine healthcare experts. From everything such as saying on February 10th, in April, some people say the heat makes this virus go away. Even on February 26th, the very first time he had a press conference to address this issue, and he had Mike Pence there, and he appointed Mike Pence, and so much of that was because the stock market collapsed 2 days before, which made him finally care about this, because everything he did was to make sure the stock market stays up, because that is his indicator for success. That's all he cares about. Because he can get an applause line and he can get donations from the top 10% of GOP donors. At that very press conference, he lied to us. At that time, we had 60 cases on U.S. soil. 15 of them were people who had contracted from others on the U.S. soil. And Donald Trump, at that conference, when he knew we were going to have more cases, said the number of cases are going to go substantially up, not down. In fact, he specifically promised this was going to go to 0. Here's clip number 5 we'll jump down to. Remarkable job you've done. If you had done a job, if you had focused on this, if you had made this a priority, we would not be here today. In fact, just the day after that press conference, Trump said, about the virus, it's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear. The next day, he had a rally. And to make his base happy and to sync up the message that Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and others on the right were saying that this was a hoax, this was not real, he went before his fans and told them that the threat posed by this virus that he told us on January 22nd, he had totally under control. He told us it was a hoax. He told us it was not real. And here is clip number 6, where he does that very issue. And then there was Donald Trump yesterday. There was a press conference, and he comes out, and he makes it clear what his priority is. He's there with Mike Pence and all these healthcare professionals. And what is he talking about? Is he talking about making sure Americans are safe, making sure we have enough ventilators, that our hospital infrastructure is there in case there is a surge, that people like Governor Cuomo here in New York are warning about? No. What did he talk about? He talked about the very thing he continues to talk about, the stock market. That was his number one concern, because there was a Fed rate cut yesterday, and he came out to do a victory lap that we got a Fed rate cut, which he's been pushing the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates because he believes that's going to spark our economy. Here's clip number 3. He was very happy. He was not happy that we are addressing this virus. He's not happy that there are doctors risking their lives out there to keep people healthy. He was happy about a Federal Reserve rate cut. He was happy because Wall Street was going to be happy. What happened today? The stock market dropped nearly 3,000 points. In fact, I think it actually ended up being 3,000 points, the biggest drop in the history of the stock market. That's what happened. And then over the weekend, we saw incompetence. It should have gotten more media coverage, but it didn't because of all the other issues going on. Over the weekend, Donald Trump's new enhanced entry screenings program went into effect. Permanent resident coming back from Europe, before you get admitted to America, you have to get screened to see if you have a temperature. They ask you questions about your medical history. That's a fine thing to do. President Obama did the same thing during the Ebola outbreak in 2014. At the time, Donald Trump tweeted calling it a joke. But in any event, now Donald Trump is copying it. The difference is when President Obama implemented that testing at the airports, he planned it. He made sure there was the resources there. He made sure people waited online, were in the right place. They got tested and they left, or they were put in quarantine. What happened at our airports? And you've got to look at the pictures. In Chicago, in Dallas, at JFK, people were left for hours. American citizens left for hours, and permanent residents next to each other, on top of each other. Me describing it doesn't do justice for what happened. People sick and healthy, infected and not, standing shoulder to shoulder. There's no social distancing. They were on top of each other for hours and hours. At Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, people were coughing and sneezing. People were tweeting about their experience. I'm online here for hours. A guy next to me is coughing and sneezing. At JFK Airport, a woman there, Ann Louise Schmidt, told CNN that we're in very close quarters. If we didn't have the virus before, we have it now. And at another airport, you had to fill out government forms. They didn't have enough pens. So the government's saying, share pens. The wait went 3, 4, 5, in some cases 7 hours, shoulder to shoulder with people. And in JFK Airport, 3 people in one afternoon were detected to have the virus and taken to the hospital. But those 3 people have been waiting for hours with people who were not infected. That's what Trump did. Why wasn't the Trump administration prepared to properly implement its own policy, a policy that it called for? It understood thousands of Americans were coming back from Europe. It knew what would happen. Everything is in a whim. Nothing matters with this guy. He wants a headline. We're enhanced testing. You don't enhance testing and put the healthy people next to infected people. And that's what he did. And despite mistake after mistake, the fact that we still don't have widespread testing. We do have more testing now than we did a week ago, but still not widespread testing. Donald Trump asked a short time ago, how do you rate your performance on this handling of this coronavirus outbreak? On a scale from 1 to 10. Before that, play the clip. What number do you think he gave himself? What number do you think he gave on 1 to 10? You know the number. He would have given himself an 11 if he could have. Here is clip number 11. A 10. He gives himself a 10, folks. This is unreal. And this is why this is not like Katrina and why this is more like Chernobyl. Katrina, President Bush made a mistake. Heck of a job, Brown. You all remember that. He's patting his Jeff Brown, who worked for him at the time, on the back. This is worse. This is more sinister. After Chernobyl in 1986, the Soviet Union lied. They didn't tell the world about this nuclear reactor disaster they had. In fact, the KGB approach at the time was any criticism of the Soviet Union from Western media. They attacked and said it should be dismissed as Western propaganda intended to blacken the regime of the Soviet Union in the eyes of the world. And what has Donald Trump done? When the threat of this virus was presented in the media and by Democratic leaders, he called it a hoax. He called it the new hoax, like impeachment, like the Ukraine, ironically like Russia. But there's Donald Trump following the pattern of the Soviet Union and dismissing and misleading and misinforming people about the risk. And this is why there are so many people who are anxious now that you wouldn't be. In fact, I was watching an expert over the weekend on MSNBC in the segment I was on Joy Reid's show and right before, talking about when he worked for the U.S. government, he would go to third world nations and other nations when they're having outbreaks like this. And one of the things they would tell them to try to encourage more calmness and comfort the people was a unified community message, which simply meant the government speaks with one voice to everyone. So when you hear about a risk, you know it's true because you have one message going, here's the risk, here's what you should do. Instead, we have Donald Trump saying, you have all the tests you need last Friday, when in fact we didn't. When Donald Trump is saying it's a hoax when it was not, when it was a deadly virus killing people. You have Donald Trump saying it's going to end in April with the heat. And Donald Trump attacking Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in the middle of all this, or they're simply trying to help our fellow Americans through a very difficult, trying time. And, of course, him blaming President Obama. That's where we are. So, do you think Donald Trump deserves a 10 out of 10? What number would you give Donald Trump for his handling of this? Give me any number you want. I'd love to hear from you on that. Also, how are you holding up? How are you dealing with this? We've got in a little bit, we're going to take a break, come back. We'll try to squeeze in a call or two. Then Nina Turner is going to join us for a little bit, the co-campaign manager for Bernie Sanders' campaign. But for a short hit, and then we'll take more calls after that. Then we get two great experts in the second hour and Jamira Burley in the third, but we're definitely going to take calls in between. I want to hear from people. 866-997-4748. At the very least, tell me how you're holding up. What's going on? What are you seeing by you? Is your anxiety level up or are you feeling better? Let's take a break. Be right back with more of the Dino Vidala Show right after this.